I have kept this record because no one else will. This is the first thing you must understand. I am not writing this for sympathy, nor for validation, nor for the particular kind of relief that comes when someone says, "Yes, I believe you. That does sound frightening." I am writing this because the thing above me is escalating. And if something happens, if the sounds stop and the silence that follows is the wrong kind of silence, someone should know what the preceding weeks contained. I am methodical. I want to say that plainly before I describe anything, because what follows will not sound methodical. It will sound, I am aware, like the testimony of something unraveling. I ask only that you hold both of these things at once, that I am precise by nature, and that precision has not protected me. It began, as most terrible things do, with something small. A sound. Specifically, the sound of feet. Small feet. The particular soft percussion of a child walking across a wooden floor, which is itself an ordinary sound, the most ordinary sound imaginable. The sound that millions of structures absorb every day without incident or unease. I want to be clear that I understand this. I want you to know I began from a position of charity. I live beneath the floor. That is simply the architecture. There is a room above me. Someone lives in it. This is not mysterious. The first night, I heard walking, back and forth. The same path, traced and retraced. I did not find this alarming. Children walk. Children pace. Children have their rituals of motion the way all living things have rituals, and I was not yet troubled. I noted it. I am always noting things. It is my nature. The second night, the same path, same weight, same pace, but slower, as if something had recalibrated, as if the walking the first night had been exploratory, and the walking the second night was deliberate, confirmed. I told myself this was projection. I told myself I was constructing a narrative from repetition, which is what minds do, which is what minds are for, the identification of patterns and noise. This is not evidence of anything, I told myself. This is your own cognition doing its job. The third night, the walking stopped directly above me, and did not resume for 4 hours. I should describe my situation more completely because context matters. I live in the dark. This is not a preference. It is not aesthetics. It is simply the nature of the space I occupy, which is low and close and largely without natural light, which has never bothered me because I have lived here for as long as I can remember living anywhere. And there are things one accommodates so gradually that accommodation becomes identity. The dark is mine. I know its texture. I know the particular quality of the absolute black in the far corner versus the softer dark near the gap in the floorboards where a thin thread of amber light comes through on evenings when the lamp upstairs is on. Her lamp. The child turns it off at the same time every night. Or more precisely, something turns the lamp off. I have No confirmation that the child is responsible, only the weight of the footsteps, which are light but deliberate, and the sounds that come occasionally in the deep hours. Not crying exactly, and not quite laughing, but something occupying the register between them. A sound that has no clean name. I began listening for her lamp. This is not a choice I made consciously. I simply noticed one night that I was tracking the amber thread, waiting for it to thin and disappear, noticing when it vanished earlier than usual, noticing when it stayed longer, attaching significance to these variations I couldn't quite explain. She turned it off 40 minutes early on a Wednesday. I did not sleep that night. The knocking started in the second week. Not at a door, not at a wall. At the floor. Her floor, my ceiling. The shared membrane between her space and mine. 3 knocks. A pause of approximately 5 seconds. 3 more knocks. Another pause. The pattern continued for 11 minutes, which I know because I counted, and because the counting was the only thing that felt controllable. Then it stopped, and from the silence that followed came a voice. Not words, tone. A high, thin, formless vocalization descending in pitch, the way a question descends, the way something seeking confirmation descends. Not aimed at a companion, not aimed at the room. Aimed, or so it seemed from below, at the floor itself. At me. I pressed myself to the far corner. This is perhaps the detail that most clearly marks the change, because I had never done that before. I had never felt the impulse. The corner has always simply been where the darkest dark lives, and I had inhabited the whole space freely, moved through it without hierarchy, without areas I preferred to avoid. After the voice, the corner became mine, in a different way. There is one slat in the floor with a knot in it, a dark circular wound in the wood. Through it, on certain evenings, I can see the faint shimmer of movement in the room above. I had looked through it before with no particular feeling. After the knocking started, I found myself returning to it again and again, watching the strip of amber light, watching the shadows that crossed it. I was trying to understand what I was dealing with. On the 14th night, she lowered her face to the floor and looked down through the knot. I saw the eye before I understood what I was seeing. Dark iris, very still, no blinking, or if there was blinking, it did not occur during the time I watched, which was not very long because I was across the space before I had consciously processed the decision to move. I pressed myself flat against the far wall. I did not breathe. From above, after a long pause, a giggle. Not a child's laugh. A child's laugh is breathy, imprecise, inclined toward collapse. This was controlled. This was the sound of something recognizing the outcome it had intended and acknowledging the recognition. This was satisfaction. She began to leave things at the edge of the bed. Toys, mostly, positioned near the floor with their faces turned toward the darkness beneath. One doll in particular, pale with a smile wider than faces tend to accommodate, was always arranged so its gaze pointed directly into the shadows where I kept myself. I watched her place it once, crouching low, lowering it slowly, her face inches from the dark. "Watch him," she told it. Then she climbed back into bed. The doll remained. Its smile did not change. I tried, in the days following, to rationalize what I'd heard. Children speak to toys. Children arrange their small worlds with great deliberateness and assign roles and responsibilities that are entirely internal and mean nothing about external reality. A child positioning a doll to watch the space under her bed is not an act of targeting. I repeated this to myself with great frequency. I also began cataloging her movements in more precise detail, which I recognize is not the behavior of something that has successfully rationalized its fear. But I needed the data. I needed to know if the patterns were real or constructed, and the only way to know was to listen, was to track the soft percussion of her steps and note where they paused and for how long, and whether the pauses were growing more frequent directly above my position. They were. By the third week, the pauses above me lasted an average of 12 minutes. She was learning where I was. I tried to leave. Once. Only once. It was during a storm. Thunder shook the house, and the wind outside produced sounds I had never heard before. Sounds that seemed to come from inside the walls. The room above went dark earlier than usual. The child had not made her customary sounds that evening. No knocking, no formless vocalization, no toys arranged at the floor's edge. The silence felt different from her other silences. It felt, I am aware of how this sounds, like an absence rather than a presence. As if she had gone somewhere. I moved toward the edge of my space. The floor outside the bed frame was cool and open, and I extended my hand into it, feeling the difference in air. Wider, less close. The particular quality of a room, rather than a crawl space. I began to pull myself out. That is when I felt the grip close around my wrist. She had been lying on the floor in the dark, perfectly still, for some duration I could not calculate. Waiting, not in the bed above it, on the floor beside it. She did not call for help. She did not make any sound at all for a moment. Then her grip tightened, and she laughed. Low, delighted. The laugh of something that had confirmed a hypothesis it had been developing for some time. "Got you," she whispered. I pulled free. I do not fully know how. I retreated to the farthest corner and did not move until the storm passed and the house settled and her breathing above me finally slowed into sleep. She lay back down afterward. She hummed. After that, she changed her approach. The knocking stopped. The vocalizations stopped. The toys disappeared from the floor's edge. For 2 days there was almost nothing, only the soft percussion of her steps, normal in rhythm and pace, giving no information. On the 3rd evening, she lay flat on her stomach at the edge of the bed and reached one arm into the darkness below, palm up, fingers spread. She held this position for 9 minutes. I did not move. She withdrew her arm without comment and went to sleep. She did this every night for the following week. Different durations, always the same posture, the same open palm. On the 5th night she began to speak during it, quietly, in the particular voice she used when she thought no one was listening, lower than her daytime voice, patient, as if conducting an experiment she had a great deal of time to complete. "Come here," she said, "and I won't hurt you." And once, on the 7th night, in a tone so matter-of-fact it took me longer than it should have to understand she was addressing me directly, "You breathe loud. I can hear it." I tried to slow my breathing after that. I pressed my hands against my chest to quiet the rise and fall. The next night, she said, "I can still hear it." She sounded pleased. There are nights when her breathing stops entirely. I know this because I listen. Listening is the only information I have, and information is the only approximation of safety available to me. So I track her breathing the way I once tracked her lamp, noting when it changes, what the changes mean, building a record I am not sure will ever be useful. Her breathing stops for long stretches, 30 seconds, sometimes longer, long enough that I began to feel something I will not name directly, something that is not quite hope, but occupies a similar space. Then she inhales sharply, surfacing, and the room above contracts back to its normal dimensions, and she says something I cannot understand. A single word sometimes, a sound that is not quite a word. Once, after a silence that lasted nearly 2 minutes, she sat up in the bed and turned her head slowly toward the edge, toward me, and spoke something that made the air in my space change temperature. I have not been able to explain this. I have tried. I have also tried to explain why I am afraid of a child. I have been in darker places than this, or stranger, or larger. I have navigated things that do not persist in memory as places exactly, but as textures, temperatures, the sensation of movement through resistance that eventually yielded. I have been in this space longer than I can date accurately. Nothing in any of that produced what I feel when her hand reaches into the dark with its palm turned upward. The ones like me have never frightened me. The ones profoundly unlike me have always been navigable at distance, explicable in their difference, containable by the same dark I inhabit. She cannot be contained. She lies on her floor above my ceiling and breathes in the direction of my space and comes back every night without fail. This small, fearless child who found me in the dark and decided, for reasons I will never be given, that I am worth returning to. Last week she spoke through the gap in the boards. Not the formless vocalization from the earlier weeks. Words, articulated carefully, the way a child articulates when they want to be understood and have thought about how to be understood and have decided this is the right moment. She said, "I can see your eyes." A pause, 3 seconds approximately, and then, "They're pretty." I have sat with this for 6 days. I have turned it over the way I turned over the other questions, and it has not worn smooth because there is something in it that catches, something that resists being comfortable. She was not afraid. She was not performing bravery for a room that contained no audience. She was alone, lying on her floor in the dark, pressing her mouth to a gap in the floorboards, and she offered, in her small, deliberate voice, an observation she found worth sharing. "They're pretty." What I felt in the moment after is the most disorienting thing that has happened across the entirety of this ordeal. Not horror, not relief. Something that does not have a clean name. Something that sat in my chest like a stone that had been worn smooth by long contact with moving water. I think she was trying to be kind. This does not make her any less terrifying. Kindness extended in the wrong direction by something that has already demonstrated it can find you in your own darkness and grip your wrist in the dark without warning and sit in comfortable stillness while you press yourself into a corner. Kindness from that source is its own category of dread. You cannot object to it. You cannot defend against being seen gently by something that knows exactly where you are and is not afraid of what it finds there. Two nights ago, she stopped reaching her arm beneath the bed. I waited for it. 31 days of the pattern, and I had become dependent on it in a way I am not proud of. Her arm at least confirmed she was upstairs in her space, conducting her experiment at a distance of several feet. The absence of the arm meant she had changed her approach again, and I did not yet know what the new approach was. I lay still for several hours. Just before dawn, I heard a new sound, a soft, rhythmic exhalation coming from the direction of the gap in the boards. She had positioned herself directly above it, and she was breathing downward into my space. And if that sounds like nothing, if the mechanics of it stripped out of context seem harmless, I want you to try to understand what it is to lie in the dark you have lived in longer than you can remember living anywhere, and hear something breathing toward you with the slow patience of something that has decided you are here and will remain here, and can therefore be approached at whatever pace it chooses. Here, you are here, and I know it. I did not move. After some time, the breathing stopped. Then quietly through the gap. It's okay if you don't want to come out yet. Yet. I do not know what she is. I have wondered in the long hours whether the uncertainty moves in both directions. I have wondered whether she has kept her own record, whether somewhere above me there is a parallel document maintained in a child's careful letters, cataloging what she has observed about the thing beneath her floor, the way it breathes, the way it retreats, the particular quality of its stillness when she reaches into the dark and holds her palm open. It is possible she is as alone in this as I am. It is possible she is 7 years old and has found something strange under her floor and is doing what children do with strange things, which is to press closer, study, offer small gifts of observation as overture. It is possible the knocking was question more than threat. The eye at the gap, searching rather than confirming. They're pretty. The most honest report available to her, a precise statement about a thing she found in the dark and could not name, but could, at least, describe. It is possible none of this changes anything about what she is to me, or what I am in relation to her, or the fact that when she breathes down through the gap, I do not move until the sound stops. I do not know what she is. I know she has never tried to hurt me. The grip on my wrist, she could have held. She didn't. I've thought about that more than anything else in 31 days of thinking. I know she keeps coming back. There are no surfaces in this space that show me my own reflection. I know myself by sensation, by the information my hands return to me, by the sound of my own breathing in the dark and the weight of my own position in the space I occupy. I know what I am by how I move through the world, not by what the world reports back. My hands, and here I should say I am aware the word hands is being used with some looseness, that the appendages I use to record these observations are not hands the way the word typically implies, are not the shape the word tends to invoke. My hands are not steady as I write this. I have been in this space longer than I can date. I have never been afraid until her. There is something worth sitting with in that. Everything I have encountered in the long and lightless duration of my existence has either been like me or profoundly unlike me, and neither category has produced this. The ones like me do not frighten me. The ones unlike me were navigable. She is profoundly unlike me, and she cannot be navigated. She lies on her floor and breathes my name in the language of breath, and she comes back every night. This strange, small, fearless child who has found me in my dark, and decided for reasons I will never fully understand, that I am worth the returning. I have asked myself in the long hours what she sees when she looks through the gap. I have tried to imagine the view from above, the angle of light, the texture of the dark below, the particular shape of what lives there when the amber thread from her lamp falls at the right angle and illuminates it partially. She said, "My eyes are pretty." This is, perhaps, the only description of myself I have received in some time. It is the only one I have. I do not know what I look like. I know that I live in the dark, and I am afraid of the child above me, and she is not afraid of me at all. The monster under her bed has not slept in 31 days. She has never lost a single night to me.